Welcome to Conversations in Education. I am your host, Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, Superintendent of Hartford Public Schools. Today, we present a conversation with some of our student leaders about student voice and affecting change at Hartford Public Schools. The vision of our strategic plan, the District Model of Excellence, is that our students will transform their worlds. In addition to the activism led by our students on National Student Walkout Days, for example, many of our students are active mentors in their schools' social justice circles, and they work in restorative justice to help their peers stay safe in and out of school. Because our students live the decisions that we as school leaders make, we must also look to them for their powerful opinions to inform us as we restructure our school district. I welcome our guests, Alexa Murata, a junior at Hartford Magnet Trinity College Academy, who helped organize the student walkouts and is part of the Restorative Justice Circles program. Martin Barrows, a junior at Culinary Arts Academy at Weaver High School and the president of our citywide student senate. Azaria Porter, a senior at Classical Magnet School, and Larnay Satchel, a junior also at HMTCA and a student activist. Welcome, everyone. I stood and I walked with our students during our very well organized and peaceful protest for National Student Walkout Days. And I thought that that was just the very beginning of a united student organized action, if you will, around the very important topic of gun violence. Did you take part in that process? I know certainly that you did, as I was there on March 14th and April 20th. You know, what did you, for example, Alexa, what did you learn from that process of organizing? Any valuable lessons that you walked away with?
Well, I learned that student voice is very empowering, and it doesn't just empower the student body, it also empowers those who are watching behind the scenes, like principals, parents, teachers, legislators, as you know, the governor and the mayor both came to our protest. So it's very important for them to see how we respond to things, as you said, and for us to contribute our ideas and thoughts and to demand change on gun violence was important for them to see and to take that in. And we saw it as, from a student point of view, we saw them very concerned, as you know, we had a town hall with the governor and you, and the governor is taking this pretty seriously, and he wants to inform the student body on the gun laws now and what he looks forward to do in May. He said he was trying to pass a new gun law. So it's nice to see that people are trying to listen to the students and want to create this change.
Arne, you were there as well. You know, you were posing some great questions around policy at the federal, at the state level, and then how that intersects with what happens every day in our schools. What are your thoughts about what students can learn from their ability to affect change in civics and even in politics?
I think that we learn a lot, especially in our history and our government classes, about a lot of different policies and different movements that, especially like the civil rights movement, that a lot of students, high school and college students, were able to be a part of. And for us to be a part of it in this day and age, I think that it's a really wide eye-opener for a lot of students to, like, back then they were doing something that could change the world, and now we also have the opportunity to do something that can change the world as well. And so I think that a lot of students were realizing the power of their voice, and I think that is so powerful, and I'm so proud that Alexa and I were able to assist them in making that effort and that change.
And you know, that connection, making the connection from the policy level that, you know, often people think that students are very far removed from, to communicating to adults, quite frankly, that you are here, that you have a voice, and there are implications, right? Policy impacts at many levels, you, of course, included as well. And so one of the things that we heard during the March walkout, and even on April 20th during the town hall, for example, is the impact that gun violence, for example, has every day, right? Think about the fact that in the city of Hartford, right, there's gun violence in our neighborhoods that doesn't gain the level of attention, right, that these very unfortunate mass shootings garner. And so I'm curious to hear, Martin, and even from you, Azaria, what your thoughts are about that level of impact on our communities, and how does the violence then affect us locally, and what do our policy makers need to hear?
Dr. Torres, it's nice to see you again.
You as well.
I would say that the policies that our policymakers need to hear is that the violence that goes around locally and throughout the country and throughout the city and throughout the state is one that not just affects our youth, it affects everybody around it. It affects our schools, it affects our adults, it affects everybody. And I think what they need to hear, instead of trying to find a way to control something that's a right, understandable, it is a right to have like guns and everything, but we need to figure out a way to turn that right around where it's not hurting people. We're allowing it to hurt people, and that's where the problem comes in. And when the violence is brought into our school system, where the kids are not allowed, our parents are afraid to send their kids to school nowadays because they're afraid if somebody's going to shoot up the school or something's going to happen. I feel that we as a school system need to figure out ways to make our schools safer, because that was the one place that, as me, if I was a parent, would have felt that was the place I can send my child to be safe.
Azari, what are your thoughts about the local impact?
I believe that the local impact is simply it. Okay, sorry. Hold on. Okay, so the local impact that I believe is seen on our children is, motivation. Maybe I'm not starting to feel safe to go to school. Like, as you said before, I'm a senior, so it's just sad to see that, I have siblings who are going through the system and not knowing whether or not they're going to come home because of violence now that's coming into our school. It's one thing to not treat it in a town perspective, like throughout the community. We need to, prevent and stop it at all causes that we can, because it's starting to really get into, our base for our children to grow. So I think that there should be, prevention and ways to not impede people who believe in the Second Amendment, but there just needs to be more prevention and helping students and parents and, the community as a whole.
And so you're talking about layers of supports. I hear you talk about the fact that our younger students at all levels, need supports, and they need to feel safe. And then, you talked about prevention, which now leads me to think about what are some of the strategies, preventive strategies that are taking place in our schools. And I immediately think about our social justice circles, for example, right? Because they provide, I think, an opportunity to start having those conversations. And so a wondering that I have, I do believe, both of you are part of the circles at your school. One wondering is what does it look like? And what then do you believe are the ways that such opportunities help you and your peers around feeling safe?
Well, what restorative justice is and what our circles are, they're a way for us to come together and openly express our feelings and emotions about different topics, and they're also a way for us to build community and build relationship among our peers and our staff, and a way for students to get closer, but as well for teachers and students to get closer. And therefore, it makes you feel more safe when you have a closer relationship with your teachers and the other staff that are there at the school that you may not be able to talk to on a daily basis.
Our group was chosen by different administration and different teachers mostly Miss Mancone. And with that, they put us together and they kind of put us through a training. And many of us weren't like close friends. We were from all different grades, including 8th grade. And so to be put into a room for one whole day, it actually brought us a lot closer. And it was really surprising to see there's so many different personalities, but we got along so well. But like outside of that like area, we probably wouldn't have talked or communicated like that before. And after that, a lot of us came together and were like, you know, we really need to bring this into our school. We shouldn't just be the only little group that, you know, has this connectiveness. So that's when we started having like trim prep time, and we would establish little groups that would talk about, you know, if you have divorced parents, or you're going through a hard time at home, or it's battling anxiety and stuff like that. Just everyday things that, you know, can cause you not to have a good day at school, and, you know, you never really get to talk about it. So that's what we started.
Yeah, just to feel like you're not alone. Like there are other people who go through the same things as you. And as we talk about some of the shooters who were involved or who are killing students, like it could have been maybe not prevented, but something could have been done where they could feel like, I'm not going through this by myself, that I have you, I have you, I have you, and we're all going through struggles, but we can get through this together. And so that's basically what a strong base of what restorative justice is.
And to have that, you know, throughout all of our schools is certainly something that we are committed to making sure happens. And that makes me think about, right, so our restructuring plan and our priorities. One of our district priorities is around school culture and climate. And one of the non-negotiables that came out of all of the engagement that we did with our community was around making sure that we had pathways from elementary to middle to high school. And so I'll ask you, Martin, what your thoughts are around what would you recommend for us to make sure we have throughout those pathways as students, you know, progress throughout the system. I'm certainly hearing a lot about social and emotional supports. What else could you add?
I can add that the first thing that I would add to any type of school is safety. Every child should feel safe. Every parent should feel satisfied sending their child to a school where they know that they're going to get the education and not fear that something's going to happen to them. So the first thing I will always add that's a non-negotiable is safety. Another thing that I would add as a non-negotiable is that every student should be not learning the same way, but be on the same pace of learning. Being on the same room, like not one student's learning one thing at this time of day and the other student's learning this, or somebody's learning a little faster. Because if everybody's not learning the same way but learning on the same pace, everybody will be going in the same direction. Not like not going to same colleges or same places, but going in the same direction and be prepared the same way. Because if everybody's prepared the same way, everybody doesn't have the excuse to say, I didn't have this to hold me, this held me back, I didn't have this didn't make me do this. Now every student has everything that they need to be where they need to be. So that's another thing that I would say is a non-negotiable.
So that speaks equity to me.
Yes.
That speaks about making sure that regardless of what school, right, and we have several represented here today, that our students do have the resources that they need.
Exactly. And what I would say is a non-negotiable is getting more students engaged in after-school activities, engaged throughout clubs, throughout the schools, engaged in anything that comes their way. Because the more that we get our students engaged in our system and engaged in the school itself, the more that the school is going to be boosted up. That's what we need to do. That's what I feel is a non-negotiable. Because when you put definitely a kid, let's say if I'm a kid that's sitting here and I'm not really into what's going on in the classroom, let me see what I feel like as administration, as students should think, is like, hey, let's see if we can make a club or something that would get this kid on the track where he needs to be. Because when you do that, it's like, okay, now they're opening that door for me, so now I can go through that door and become the person I want to be.
So safety, I heard, social and emotional supports. I also heard engagement, guaranteeing not only to our students but to our families, right, our siblings, our parents, that schools are safe environments for our students to learn. Any other non-negotiable that you can think of?
I know that engagement is definitely something that I would say is a non-negotiable, something that's for everyone, whether it be something like a sport or even an after-school club that definitely promotes more motivation for a student to, want to be in the school and do good in school and, make it far out into life. So I think that there's just like, programs, or even if the school isn't able, monetary-wise to provide a program, then setting up a system where schools around the Hartford area could definitely, collaborate and share their resources with others. So I think the more you have people interested, the more you get from what they're doing, like the fruits of their labor, I should say.
And one way, right, that we can continue to cultivate that student engagement is by allowing opportunities for voice, which is, what I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to discuss today. And so I just want to say how proud I am, certainly of all that I've seen each and every one of you contribute to beyond today, right? Your leadership, your voice, your activism, and really your commitment. I hear you talking about policy. I hear you talking about your siblings and making sure that our younger students, right, have the conditions necessary for success. I hear you all talking about community and how our community also needs to be supported in order to support our students. And so quite proud we should all be of you and our students. I want to thank our guests for being with us today. I urge you to participate in the restructuring of our school district by visiting our website at hartfordschools.org to learn more about events that you can attend and ways that you can share your voice. I thank you for watching and stay tuned for more conversations in education.